Here's a yellow humpy. Before we start, let me just point out this material on the back here. There's a little deer hair on top of that yellow. Point that out because it's a little hard to see sometimes. We're going to start this off by tying on the wings up front here and do a little bit of base of thread here. And then get a clump of this deer hair. I'm going to put it in my 2-piece deer hair stacker and then pound that on the desk to even out those tips. I'm actually going to turn them around so I can grab them with my right hand. And now I'm going to tie these onto the hook. About there. I'm going to just cut off some of the extra on the back end of this. And begin to tie that down onto the hook. I'm going to scooch it forward a little. I can see it's a little farther back than I want. So bring it forward there. And wrap a little bit of thread up front to kind of push that hair material straight up in the air. Get it standing up like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to split that kind of down the middle. So you can take something like this if you want, or just kind of eyeball it a little bit. And make this into 2 sides here. Front and back. And just a little thread between them to help separate those. Don't give up with this. This is probably the trickiest part you're going to do on this fly. Now with those separated, I'm going to try to wrap a base of thread around the wings to hold each wing material, kind of hold them together to keep all that material together here. So I'm actually wrapping around the hair, not the hook at this point. You gotta be careful with how much pressure you give it because you don't want to have it go too crazy on you. This last pass I am going to go around the hook again. And now I'm going to come over to the front, the one closest to me, and do the same thing. Try to just get that around the hair, just to create a little base of thread around the hair, holding all those pieces together. So we've got 2 distinct wings. Another pass between them. I'm going to hold them up. I'm just going to pull that piece off there. Now I'm going to come back and tighten these down a little bit more too. Try to get them to lay down a little flatter. Now at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to do a couple half hitches on this, just to lock that black thread in there. And the reason I said black thread is because we're going to switch to white. The reason I'm switching to white, I could have probably started with white if I wanted to, but there is black on the original up front. You can kind of see it in there, the black head. So I use that for the wing. But I'm switching to white because when you get to the yellow body, you're going to want that white as the base underneath the yellow. Because if you put the black under there, the black will make the yellow harder to see, and you'll just end up spinning so much of that yellow material that it's just going to take forever to cover up the hook because you're trying to cover black with yellow, and it's just not going to work. It's just going to take forever to do that. So I'm just going to come in here and trim up some of these loose ends just to shorten it up a little. And now we're going to just try to cover this up with with this white thread and compress down those hairs. So you can see now we got more of a white body underneath here. Let's get under here and focus in on a couple of those black parts and see if we can turn them white. Now some of that's going to be covered up by hackle here in a minute anyway, but this body section, that's what I'm just trying to get covered. Okay, so now we're going on to the tail part, and again the tail is just this deer hair again. So I'm going to take another piece, another clump of this, stack that in the stacker, pull that out with those evened ends. Just kind of get an idea of how long I want it there. Tie that onto the back as a tail. Just trying to get some of those butt ends tied down there. And I'm going to bring in the yellow floss. Now I like to use a little bit of water, so I just got some in a shot glass here, and just kind of wet this material. Just kind of keeps it from fraying a little bit, I think. And I'm going to tie that in on here. Now just when you thought you were done with the deer hair, we are going to use another piece of it. Another section of it. This is for the top piece that I showed you. That's right there on the top, on the yellow body. So I'm going to take just a small piece of that. We're not going too crazy on this piece. And again, just trying to get those deer hair pieces tied down a little bit there. Okay. Now that's separate from the tail, as you can see. Now we're going to bring this forward, and this is where you want that white underbite, the thread underneath to be white, because if you had black here, the color, your yellow just would not be showing through as well because you got the black background. So we're just going to roll this forward. And because I got a nice long piece, I'm going to go back here again. And then forward. Now we can cut this piece off. And now we're going to take that top portion, bring that forward. Tie that off there. Now you can see it kind of is going into the wing, and that's okay because we built that up already. So it's just going to kind of act as more wing material for us. Now I'm going to switch back to the black because the head of this is black. That whip finisher is too small. I don't have my larger one with me right now, so just put a couple of wraps here. And switch back to black. And next up, we're going to tie in these hackle pieces. There's two of them. I'm going to just try to tie them in at the same time here. So just kind of pulling them to get them flared out a little bit. Try to even up these tips to tie them in. You can tie them in separate if you want, but I tie them in together sometimes. Okay. There's my tips. Get them locked in, and I'm going to bring my thread to the front. And just a couple of wraps in the back should do it. And a couple of wraps in the front. And then tie those off. Pull everything back. A couple of final wraps for the head. And then, of course, a whip finish to finish that off. And that is the yellow humpy. Go throw that for some trout.